for coming. I'm Dave Modzleski. I was a volunteer in the Oswego from 68 to 70. And we're hoping to have a good showing tonight. I'm going to introduce you to Ina, who will talk a little about Peace Corps Panama Friends, and then introduce our panelists. And we're going to ask people to keep themselves muted. If you have any questions, please go to the chat section and we'll take them and then pass them along to the panelists. And what else did I want to say?
Am I muted?
I think that's about it. So,
okay, so now,
Ina, it's all yours.
Ina, David.
Ina, I'm sorry.
Right.
You told me that earlier, and I'm not sure if it. Why am I saying?
No worries. Hello, everyone. My name is Ina Heisey. I served in Group 65, CEC, from 2010 to 2013 in San Andres, Chiriquí. And I don't want to say it's the best province, but anywho, I've been PCPF president for the past 3 years, and it truly has been one of the most rewarding experiences of my life. It's actually so good to see some of the faces who have written me emails to tell me how good El Bochinche is or how nice it is to stay connected to one another. So hi, I'm so happy to have all of you here. For those of you who may be new to the group or not familiar with PCPF, this organization started, gosh, almost 35 years ago in 1986. And some of those original members actually are on this call today. So how cool is that we're still keeping in touch? It all started here in Washington, D.C., and over 30 years later, we still have the same missions, which is really threefold. First and foremost, to keep our members in touch with current events in Panama and what's happening in the country that we love so much and we all called home, and keep in touch with each other. And one of the ways that we do this is through El Bochinche, which is now a quarterly newsletter. We do RPCB highlights to see what cool things are people doing and how their experiences in Panama has shaped their lives. We have a Facebook group that has over 1,400 members where people can discuss relevant events, can share news, and so forth. And I will share that link with you. And we also have a website where we share our newsletter and any other updates that we might have with the group. Our second goal is to support Peace for volunteers in Panama. We were all volunteers. We all know how poor everyone was and how hard it was to find funds to support those essential projects that you were doing inside. And we're really able to do this because of you guys. Thank you so much for continuing to support us through donations, by buying the calendar every year. In the past 3 years since I've been president, we've given out about $4,000 in projects. So that has been really inspiring to see the really cool projects the volunteers are doing in their sites. And if you're wondering, what kind of projects are they doing? If you go on our website, we have all the past issues of El Bochinche, and you will find highlights of those projects in those newsletters. And then the last goal that we have is to share knowledge of Panama with the American people and vice versa. So many of us don't get to travel outside the country. So many Americans don't have the experiences that we've had. And if we can just share what makes us all the same, right? What makes us all humans, and share those little nuggets of knowledge that we have about Panama, hopefully this world will be a little bit of a better place, especially at a time in which we're living now in America. If you have any questions about PCPF, if you would like to get involved, and this could be because you want to build your resume with leadership positions, or maybe you have a lot of time on your hands now with quarantining and you're bored and you're like, man, I wish I really had some projects to work on. Please let us know. You can always email us. You can send me a message on Facebook. However, it's easier for you to contact us. We are always working on really neat projects to keep this group going. So please don't hesitate to reach out. I want to just before I give the floor, I just want to say thank you to Steve and his wonderful wife, Barb, who's an honorary member of PCPF, to Dave, to Bonnie, and all the other people that have really put together this event. Unfortunately, I have literally done nothing for this because of work and how busy I've been. And if it weren't for them, this wonderful event wouldn't be possible. So thank you so much to the organizing team for this. And that's all I'll say. And I'll turn the floor over to Andy.
Awesome. Thank you so much. First of all, I want to thank all of you guys for keeping up this awesome tradition, for staying interested in Peace Corps Panama, you know, after serving. I think it's really inspiring to see you guys, to see that you're still so interested in Peace Corps Panama, because I guess I'll speak for all of us. It was really hard getting evacuated, and I still feel like I'm living in Panama. So it's nice to see that, you know, you can still stay connected, and I look forward to staying connected with all of you in this awesome network. And thank you to everyone for organizing. I apologize I couldn't get more people on the panel. It was really tough. I think everyone is, you know, all over the place now that we've been evacuated. Some people are applying to grad schools, applying to jobs. Some people are working already. So it was hard, but I have some quality volunteers on here with me. So basically we each prepared some pictures from our services and some words to talk about our experience as Peace Corps volunteers and our experience in the evacuation. So here with me today, I have Kira, who was in CEC G82. I have Bailey and Christina, who are also CEC in G84. And I guess I'll go first since I'm already talking, and I'll talk about my Peace Corps experience a little bit and show you the pictures and everything that I prepared. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
No.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so my name is Andy.
Your screen.
No, we see you.
Oh, you see me. David, am I screen sharing? Okay.
No, not yet.
Give me
Okay.
a second. We have to make you co-host.
Oh, okay. Got you.
You got it? No. Okay, you're on now.
Okay, let's try it out. Okay, can you see it now?
No.
Mm-mm.
No.
Steve.
Share. You hit share screen, and then you pick the screen from your background, and then in the lower right-hand corner, you'll see another share button, and you have to click that.
Okay. There we go.
There it is.
Yeah?
Yes.
We good? Okay, perfect. Okay, so my name is Andy. I was a CEC volunteer as well, and my group number was G80. And I served in Panama from 2017 to 2020. I served an extra year, which I'll talk about towards the end of my little presentation. But yeah, in these pictures, in the top picture, I'm in my community, which is Chica. In the bottom picture, I'm holding an avocado, which is one of the foods that I missed most from Panama, especially because the avocados were as big as my head and so cheap. And the picture on the side is me and my cat. Her name is Stinky. Her original name was Pasita, but I changed her name to Stinky along the way. This was my group. This was group 80. This was both CEC and TELS. So you can see us with the Diablo Rojo in Ciudad de Saber. In the bottom picture, we were at one of our trainings in a training community, and that was our swear-in picture that's up on the wall in the office, just like every group has. These are some of my compañeros that served with me. So I served in Panama Oeste for my first 2 years, and these were some of my best friends. The top picture is the view from my community, actually. The bottom picture is at a baile eating meat on a stick, which was one of our favorite snacks to get, and I definitely miss that. And the picture on the side was at a Sami Sandra concert because they would actually perform in my community every year for Carnival. So I got to see them 2 years in a row, which was very fun. I really love dancing Tipico. And like I said, my community's name was Chica in Chame in the province of Panama Oeste. In this top picture, you can see me with my host mom and my host dad. They were two abuelos whose kids were grown. So I was their new baby for 3 months. The bottom picture is the little orange house. That was my house once I moved out of my host family's home. That beautiful view is one of the many viewpoints that I had from my community because it was up in the mountains, up in the mountains of Chame. So you could see the Pacific Ocean really well. We had beautiful mountain ranges. And that bottom picture was at my community analysis meeting, which I did at the end of the first 3 months of my service in order to decide what projects I was going to do in the community. So some of the projects that I did work on were in Parque Nacional Altos de Campana, which was a national park that was right next door to my community. So I got to do a lot of hiking. I got to work with national park staff. So the woman I'm with in that picture was one of my counterparts. We did a lot of ecotourism together. The man who I'm with holding peace signs up, he was my other counterpart who worked at the national park. And in the bottom, you can't see the picture too well, but he was another community member named Inocencio, and we did ecotourism. I would help him guide groups, and I kind of taught them some fun dinamicas to do with kids. And I also got to work up in the finca with other community members, which is the top picture and all the grass that you can kind of see. These are just some more pictures from my community from projects I did. In the middle, you can see women are weaving and I'm cutting a t-shirt. This is one of the projects that we started doing. It was macrame made out of old t-shirts that people had laying around that they weren't going to use. You can cut it up in kind of like a thread, and then we would teach the people how to weave them and make plant hangers, which was a really fun project that I got to do in my 2 years. And then my main project was actually a Girl Scout troop that I led in the community. So this is a picture of me on like my first day meeting the girls, and they swore me in as their official troop leader. It was a really special time. They gave me my bandana and everything. On the side, that was a training that I went to in Panama City with some other volunteers at the Girl Scout headquarters in Panama City. And then that bottom picture was actually our first Girl Scout meeting, and we ended up going on a hike in the community because the girls really love to go outside. And these are some activities. We did a lot of outdoor activities. One of my goals was really to encourage them to be environmental stewards. So we did lots of hiking in the national park. I got to work together with park staff to bring them out there. Lots of team building activities. We did some other hiking with different community members. We also camped in my yard in the community, which was super fun. We had a little garden. We used old latas, old vegetable cans, to plant some flowers. And we did lots of community limpiezas where we would go up and down the community picking up trash. We would do that every other week about. Besides that, we would make cookies, we made pizza, we would go to the waterfalls in the community, and I also taught them some macrame with old t-shirts. So most of my time in my site I got to spend with my Girl Scouts, which was really special. Besides that, I worked in the school as well. I taught environmental science and English. I also did some sexual education charlas in my school and in neighboring schools. So you can see pictures there. At the bottom, I was teaching the kids the difference between recycling, reusing, reuse, recycle. What's the other one? I forgot the 3 R's. Anyway, yeah, lots of projects like that. I got to plan an environmental week in my school where the kids had to make murals and displays all made out of recycled materials, all with an environmental science theme. So these are some examples. this really pretty one says, "Solo cuando se haya secado el último río." Oof, this is hard. But it's the quote that says, when the last river dries up and the last fish is gone, humans will realize that you can't eat money. It's that quote in Spanish. So yeah, those were really beautiful displays that the students made for that environmental week. We also made pesticides out of organic pesticides. We flipped tires inside out to make these planters, which was a big project that CEC volunteers did in my time in Panama. And we also kind of did a fashion show. The kids had to make outfits made out of recycled material. Usually their parents did it for them, or they would even pay like a professional to do it. Like this little girl had a really beautiful dress made out of newspaper that I don't think she made herself. So that was a lot of fun. Something special was in my community. The biggest industry is growing and selling flowers, and every year they have a flower fair in April or May. And I was on the committee to plan for the flower fair. And one day at a meeting, the older men who are in the top picture, that top picture is the committee, they were talking about who the reina would be that year. And one of my counterparts was like, "We already have a reina, she's right here." And I got nominated to be the flower queen of our flower fair in 2018. So I got to wear a pollera. It was a 3-day fair, so I had 3 outfits, of course. And I got to give palabras, and I had to take so many pictures with people. It was really special. Peace Corps staff came out. There you can see Francisco. He's the program manager for CEC. And the 2 PTSs are Sarah and Layla, and then Maria Elena, the head of security. They all came out, and it was a really, really cool weekend, but it was absolutely exhausting to be a reina. And then, like I said, I stayed for a 3rd year as a regional leader or a regional coordinator. They kind of changed the name. So I served my first 2 years in Panama Oeste, and I applied to stay as a 3rd year, and I got accepted and moved to the Azuero. So I was really lucky to get to know both Herrera and Los Santos in my 3rd year. And I was basically a supervisor to about 32 volunteers total in my 3rd year. Really, really fun time. I absolutely loved my 3rd year. I got to bond with all of the different volunteers. I was basically the liaison between Mi Ambiente, Meduca, the office, and volunteers. I would plan meetings, bi-monthly meetings, and do visits out to communities, volunteers' communities. So you can see some pictures here in the communities. I also planned 2 regional meetings, which were kind of bi-monthly retreats that we have with all of the volunteers and office staff. And I got to plan the first one in Parací, and the second one we did in Playa Venao, which was super fun. Walking in super muddy communities in the rainy season. We got to take a boat out one day to Isla Iguana. It was a really fun, really special year. I also became a huge fan of Chitre's baseball team. Their youth baseball team, but they're basically like professionals. They're very good, and it's obviously you can see the huge crowd at the games. It was really fun. Up there you can see me with our Mi Ambiente rep. We gave him a jersey as like a going away gift. And then up top with Francisco and another return volunteer having margaritas. So my 3rd year was really awesome. It was a lot of work. I grew a lot professionally, and I had a lot of fun. And then that brings me to evacuation. I was less than a month out from actually having my COS. I was almost done when coronavirus started up. I had heard about it, but I wasn't taking it very seriously. I didn't think it would get to us in Panama. I had even booked a trip to Colombia for after COS to go there for 2 weeks. I had very different plans than coronavirus had for me. And then on March 16th, we got the text message from the office saying that we were being evacuated, and basically to get to Panama City as soon as possible. And this was around 8:30, 9 o'clock at night when we got that text message from the office. And it was crazy. And my house was in Chitre, and it was kind of there for volunteers to stay at if they ever needed somewhere to stay. So volunteers started flooding into my house with their bags, waiting for buses to get to Panama City. I was very stressed out because I have my cat, Stinky, that I showed you earlier, and I didn't want to leave her behind, so I was super stressed out about it. We ended up getting a chartered bus the next morning that I was kind of in charge of making sure the volunteers were on it. And then I said so long to them, and I brought my cat to the vet, and I brought her to Mita to get all of her papers so I could get her home, even though we technically were not supposed to do that. I broke some rules because I wasn't going to leave my cat behind. I ended up getting on a bus with her later in the day. I got to Panama City, snuck her into the hotel that we were staying at, against policy as well. And I ended up actually booking my own flight and leaving the next morning on my own dime because I wanted to get my cat home, and we couldn't do that on a flight that the Peace Corps bought. So I left Panama on March 17th and left most of the volunteers there. And the other volunteers can tell you more about that because I was gone after that. And so since then, I have been in Pennsylvania. I'm from the Poconos, looking for a job and hanging out with my mom and my animals. And my cat is here. She's sitting over here actually listening while we talk. So that's my service and my evac story. I don't know if I should answer your questions now or if we should move on to the other volunteers. So David or Steve, tell me what to do. Move on. Okay. So Kira, would you like to go next? Stop share.
Sorry, I was on mute.
Okay.
Yeah, let me just figure out how to pull up the presentation I have.
Okay.
And then I'll share my screen.
Andy, while people are waiting for Kiara to get that squared away, can you explain what CEC stands for?
Absolutely. So CEC stands for Community Environmental Conservation. So right now in Peace Corps Panama, there are 4 sectors, 5 technically. So there's CEC, there's TELS, which is Teaching English and Leadership. I'm getting that wrong. There's another, it's 2
leadership and life skills, I think.
There you go.
Teaching
Thank
English
you.
Yeah.
There's WASH and there's SAS. So SAS is Sustainable Agriculture, and WASH is, what does WASH stand for?
It's like sanitation and hygiene.
It's water and sanitation hygiene, I think.
There we go. Exactly. And then the 5th one is Peace Corps Response, which is when volunteers can come for 6 months to a year and work with NGOs in Panama. All right. You want to take it away, Kira?
Yeah, can everyone see my screen okay?
You can.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
So this first picture here is actually from my 3-month meeting. Yeah, young baby Peace Corps Kira in my polo, not really sure how to speak Spanish or how to conduct a community meeting, but I had my host mom over there helping me get everybody signed in, and Layla, part of our great CEC team. So this first slide, actually, I think Sandra is in here somewhere. She is the queen of this project right here. And luckily I had the opportunity to coordinate with her. And then in turn, my community got to collaborate with her and with the Proyecto Esfuero, or Fundación Proyecto Esfuero. So I was in Los Santos in the Esfuero. And I was a first-time volunteer in my site. Although technically, I think we had someone back in the 60s and we had somebody once in the 90s. But I was considered first-time volunteer. And as Andy mentioned, I was CEC, I was Community Environmental Conservation. But what was interesting about being a first-time volunteer is that I had the chance to try so many different projects because first of all, our community was quite small, about 130 people, 140. And so we were really pioneering any of the ecological projects that were happening in our area. And this one right here that I'm showing a picture of was a great collaboration where we saw a lot of support from women in the community and children especially. And we even had some guys come out and participate in different activities that we did, but we're doing different artisan projects that they could market, because all of these women have incredible skills just above and beyond professional. Oh, that's the school. But I'll probably have a few more pictures in and around this. I also taught English at the school, and this is my class. This is my beautiful teacher, and we were celebrating Dia de la Patria. So if you guys all remember, the month of November is just filled with celebration, and school's no different. This is one of my favorite pictures of my community. So my community was Bajo Corral, and this is our one-room schoolhouse. We have grades from kindergarten to 6th grade, which was really dynamic, to say the least. And this was one of the first projects that I implemented in site. We called it the Dia de la Planta. So we focused mainly on using plants to create some more beautiful scenery around our school, because it was a very central location in our community. And we all just kind of got our hands dirty because, like I said, I was a first-time volunteer, so it was sort of like if people were supportive, then I'd bring them ideas, and this one turned out really well. Planters are still there, I believe. We reused recycled tires, which was a really big initiative in the schools around Panama at the time. Some places did some absolutely amazing artwork with it. We were just getting started, so we painted ours the national flag colors. Here we have, this is my community counterpart for a little while, and he's teaching the kids about bokachi, so basically creating your own fertilizer. And that whole thing is a long process, but to have the kids involved for part of it was really exciting, because later on, about 2 years later, about a year and a half, we ended up planting trees too, and so they kind of saw the process of growing and implementing the nutrients and creating this happy little atmosphere for plants to thrive, and then what it looks like when you get it started. Yeah, so this is more of the planter process. Myself with some of the students, some of our community members, one of the dads of our students too. This is the beginning of our garden that we tried to implement in the school. There's a couple of trial and error projects too. This one is the garden in the back. This one is a garden that we started with some of the students and 2 volunteers from Group 84 who are actually coming out to visit me before they even had their site assignment. So it's really great. My kids always got super excited when somebody came to visit, and they'd like be on their best behavior, and and I'd always get a lot more of my projects done that way. So I loved having people come to visit me. And I just love showing off our town, because the hospitality in our town and just the general, orgulloso, like people they had a lot of pride in where they're from, and they shared it in the most beautiful way, and I had a lot of respect for that. So yeah, this is our one-room classroom, and here we are learning English, which is not necessarily part of our job description, but as you guys know, it kind of ends up happening whether or not you are an English teaching volunteer. And here we're talking about ecosystems. This was one of the days when I showed them planet Earth, and it was a very exciting afternoon. Here was one of our projects closer to the end of my service. This is one of I call them my eco-heroes, like ecological heroes. I had this group of, when I started, they were 10 years old, but by the time I left, they were getting ready for secondary school. And so they had been with me from the beginning to the end of a reforestation project that we started, growing and planting all of the trees that, either survived or died, as they do in reforestation projects. And here they are starting a project that they're going to teach to the rest of their classmates. So it was great to see them really go full circle and take that initiative. Here they are teaching the students, and I would say it was pretty successful. I was very proud of them for that one. This was another major project that we did. I coordinated with a well, we were introduced to a US-based organization that came to Panama, and they actually go to a few different countries around the world, specifically in Latin America. But it's called Global Glimpse, and the older student you can see in this photo, he's actually from the US. He's one of several who came out here to help us with leadership projects, to help us with developing projects and goals in our community. And they do it in a lot of different ways, but for us, it was going back to the school and really reinforcing what we've started with the school. And it was pretty cool because the students from the US came in, got to know our students here, and sometimes there was a language barrier, sometimes there wasn't. There's a lot of Spanish-speaking students too. But they filled the role of, we didn't have a high school in my community, we didn't even have anything close to that. So they filled the role of being that older role model, of really like having those peer conversations with our students, and then also presenting ideas for what they thought our school needed. We ended up having them, and this was their idea, they ended up creating different murals in the bathrooms for boys and girls, kind of just talking about like health and growing up, and like little letters of motivation, and building doors for the bathroom stalls to give them privacy, something we didn't have. And then they also created a composting system for us and helped us plant some of the trees that we'd started in our reforestation project. And this is us saying goodbye to them. There was a lot of tears that day. This is the whole group together, the US students and our students. So again, the older high school age students are all the ones from the US. But again, it was great because in Peace Corps, part of our role is to share American culture. And I think this was a better representation than what they might have previously assumed on American culture. It was a really great, beautiful, diverse group of kids who came from different parts of the country too, especially coming from a different part where I'm from. So I might have been some of the first interaction that some of my community members had with an American, and nobody can find Iowa to begin with, which is where I'm from. So it's nice to be able to have a few other states to refer to. Yep, and here we are planting the trees. Again, at the end of everything, just another successful picture of a job well done. The kids are wearing trash bags to protect their school uniform. But I would say it was a really great opportunity for everyone to show off a little bit on both sides. And this, maybe you guys will recognize the corn cobs right there. So it was just a special day with everyone. The parents in our community, they were the ones responsible for providing lunch at school. And it was corn harvesting season. So we were making tortillas and bollos and all the great goods. Panuelos and just like everything made out of corn and fried in vegetable oil. And it was awesome. This is a really great initiative that we did my first year. And we brought 2 students to come in and speak about things going on in their school, which is pretty awesome too, because there wasn't a whole lot of other outlets for our students to come and have that leadership role. So these are 2 of my more eloquently spoken students. This was an ecological fair that we did. I also admit it was a learning experience for me. Here, the women in the green shirts are from Mi Ambiente, our local environmental agency. And yeah, I would say it was a successful day. We had a lot of people come out who wouldn't have been otherwise involved. So we had some of the church ladies come and some of the dads come out and help out. This is part of the reforestation project we did with the students, those eco-aires that I was talking about. So here they are. And really what the best part about this was we just got them outside and talking about things that they basically already, they already know about their environment. They already know about these exciting creatures that they see. They already know about these plants, but just putting in another context where it's more, what's the term I'm looking for? We're just more magical and wondrous, and we're like, this is really cool stuff. So he has a worm. And here we are just like looking at the different plants. This right here was another opportunity for our eco groups. I actually tried to create an eco group my first year, and it didn't work. This was part of that. We had momentum for like 3 weeks, but Sandra, like I mentioned, who's here, she helped us revitalize that group. So the second time we did it, we ended up having 35 different actually even more, like 30 to 40 participants compared to the 3 that we had when I first started. And we had an entire committee, and yeah, it grew a lot more momentum by then. This is just kind of a random thing about my experience out there. One of the most random jobs that I ended up having while I was in my community was snake wrangler. So I didn't always catch the snakes, but I would re-release them for the gente because, and maybe you guys have similar experience, oftentimes snakes were just killed right out because they're seen as dangerous, they're seen as gross, they're seen as a lot of different things. They eat the chickens, and I have a background working with and handling snakes and other small animals, reptiles, mostly reptiles and amphibians, but that was one of the first things that I learned how to say in Spanish while I was out there was basically like, we don't need to kill these guys. So everyone's solution to that was like, well, if Kira doesn't want us to kill it, then she can take care of it. And here I am releasing a python with one of my community members. But on the other side, it also I ended up meeting this cute guy. Yeah, this is a juvenile female otter, a river otter that my counterpart found in my first few months in site. I'd also worked with them briefly, so I had a little bit of background on it, and he knew it, and we used it as kind of an educational opportunity with some of the kids in my site. And as far as I know, the last that I heard, she grew to a full healthy adult age and was re-released out into the wild in the Asuero. And here we are with a little small tiny snake that the kids were getting a chance to touch and feel. And this was part of a STEAM week initiative that I did. So STEAM is science, technology. I switched the E from engineering to English, art and mathematics. And we just did a series of English-based activities, art-based activities, science, physics, and like creating toys out of different recycled materials and stuff. And this was part of a wildlife conservation charla that we did. Here we are with one of the students too. That's a kite. I don't know if you can tell. Dream catchers, yeah. And so a few more of these photos are just me showing off my community members and some of the other meetings that we had. Some days more successfully than others, and some days also learning experiences. But ultimately, and this is when my parents came to visit. Like I said, when people came to visit, I got a lot more work done, so I put my mom to work as well. But ultimately, and I think everyone here can attest to it too, the best part about this job is the people that you meet. Here's another picture of our beautiful women's group, the Eco Artisans. And I mean, and everything that happened out in Panama, the people who showed me time and time and again that they wanted to be involved and they wanted to support one another. There's nothing else like it. This is a picture from my birthday party. They dressed me up in a pollera and we danced and we celebrated, and I've never felt more like a princess. It was really, really wonderful and a very generous, kind thing for all of them to do. This fellow right here, he worked at the school and had been a huge supporter of our projects, and my counterpart actually left like 6 months into my service, so I was kind of fighting for some support. He ended up being a really strong asset to our projects. Right here, Ronaldo too, another strong asset. And this was a great initiative with great collaboration with Pro Eco Asuero, where they came in and brought all of the brindis and supplies for doing a bonfire, and I got everyone together and we shared stories. And what was so much fun about it was just like that traditional aspect of sharing stories around the fire, which, you know, should never go away. But we got some other people out who hadn't been there before, and we told some of the, I don't know if you guys ever heard the like Tio Sapo and Tio Conejo, and there's all these old fables out there that the older generations are familiar with, but the younger ones haven't learned them yet because they're always watching TV or movies and stuff. Ironically, that was one of our movie nights. Here's our fearless leader, Andy. She came out one of the days to help me in the classroom. and we did kind of like a leadership capacity building project working on teamwork. They're kind of mixed together. This was a Halloween project that I did with the kids. So we ended up making all of our decorations out of recycled materials, but the best part about it was just having a party for the kids and doing like yard games and stuff and dressing up. And yeah, the rest of them are community members. So yeah. And just to briefly touch on the evacuation process, I got myself amongst some of the luckiest because I actually got to see most of my gente before I left. I, like Andy, was planning to COS about a week later than our evacuation date. So I would have left the 22nd of March and we got evacuated, I think, on the 15th. And because I was already planning to leave, my gente had, they'd planned me a surprise party to say goodbye. But what's kind of funny is by then they'd started to implement some of the stay-at-home orders. So they kind of like broke out of their homes and surprised me on my front porch by putting chairs around and bringing food to my porch, and we all had this impromptu party. And it was there where I found out that we had to be evacuated, which was shocking to say the least. But on the positive twist, as I was packing my bags and as I was figuring out where to go and what all of it meant, I had like 9 different Panamanian mamas out there telling me what to pack and where to go and what to do and who was going to give me a ride places and giving me food, of course. So it was a lot, but it was, I mean, I couldn't have asked for a better send-off. I mean, I literally had a community member holding my hand as I drove away. So it was very greatly reminded by what community means when you experience it like we did out in Panama. So yeah, that's my presentation. Thanks.
Thank you, Kira.
Yeah.
Bailey, would you like to continue? We'll keep Dioscuero going.
Sure, absolutely. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Hi, my name is Bailey Rosen. I am also a community environmental conservation volunteer, or I guess it was. Sorry? Okay. And I'm from Florida, so I'm actually here in Florida right now, enjoying the beach, which hasn't closed at all, actually. And I'm actually here taking care of my grandmother. So I will be speaking a bit. Let's make sure I can do this screen share about my community, Santa Ana de los Santos. Can everyone see that or no?
Yep.
Fantastic.
Yep.
Yes.
All right. So I was in the community of Santa Ana de los Santos, which is about 15 minutes outside Chitre. It's pretty big, and it's one of the few kind of coastal adjacent communities that was in the CEC program, because they were kind of phasing that out for a variety of reasons. It's pretty big in terms of Peace Corps. It's about 2,000 or 3,000 people, depending on who you ask. But it really retains a lot of that community Azuero feel. And it's also the hottest and driest part of the entire country. So it was a lot of dehydration when I first started there. So I have a picture here. The large picture is from one of my morning runs. The picture on top is one of my favorite families. We took our bikes down to the beach and went to go visit another neighbor that lives on the beach and then walked on the beach with our bikes. And then the picture below that is actually of an adjacent protected area called Peñón de la Honda, which is a wetland protected area. And I'll hit a little bit more about that because that's been really central to my service, that protected area. So these are just a couple photos of priorities during my service. Starting, I guess, at 12 o'clock with the 2 men in the blue shirts. Those are 2 teachers at my school working in the community garden. We planted, what did we have? Habichuela. Yes, we had cabbage, cucumbers, corn, and yes, I think that was it. And we were actually starting to expand to do even more this coming year before the evacuation. Oh, and just to clarify, so Andy is a third-year volunteer, or was a third-year volunteer, and Kira did her 2 years. I was actually only 1 year into my service before the evacuation. I was just about to hit a 1-year anniversary in my site, a little bit more than that with training. So it comes from, so where I'm coming from is only having kind of that first year adjustment period, and a lot of it was cut short, which is super unfortunate, but it's not necessarily for forever. The other picture we have up in the upper right hand corner is with the 6th grade class. Together with the school, we painted signs for the beach that say, you know, don't throw your trash here, this is the home for birds. And then I organized a bus to come get the students down, and we all put up the signs. And then up in the upper left-hand corner is our mangrove nursery. So my biggest project was reforesting a mangrove area that had been deforested for shrimp farming in probably about 15 years previously. And so I had the kids cut off bottles, and I brought the seeds, and we actually created our own little mangrove nursery right in the school. And then you can see the photo right below that is one of the kids and one of my favorite counterpart teachers in the artificial pool for the mangroves. And so we had all kinds of lessons about mangroves, and then we organized a big planting day. The picture on the bottom is some of the preschoolers I worked with. So in that very Peace Corps way, I was just walking around the town, and someone said, oh, you should give, you know, English lessons at the preschool. And I was like, yeah, okay, I can teach English to 3-year-olds. Can I? Questionable, but we had a really great time. So I actually printed off some mangrove coloring sheets, and we colored with the kids, and I did some basic English numbers and colors with them. I'm not sure how much they retained, but it was a fantastic community building activity. And we actually were starting an organic garden in the preschool because the parents were so interested in it. And that's another thing that got cut off by the evacuation. We were really deep in the preparation. We had the plants, we had the materials, we had everything, and it was scheduled for, I believe, a week or 2 weeks before we were evacuated. The last photo is of the paper recycling we started in the school. So the kids would all bring their papers that they'd used and put them in the paper recycling. And then one of my counterparts would come with me, and we would take them to a Centro de Acopia in Chitre. Waste management was a huge, huge priority. It's really interesting with Peace Corps. You've always got a couple people who are very interested and super environmentally motivated, but the majority are just kind of excited about an event or want to make their community better. And so waste management was really a way to connect with those people, because everyone wants to see cleaner streets and less trash burning. Okay, let's see. Okay. So I don't know if anyone can chime in about time. I've got a pretty short presentation. I do have a 3-minute video. I can either play it or I can drop a link in the chat box. I'm not sure how we're doing on time. If anyone wants to chime in.
I think 3-minute video would be fine.
Fantastic. So this is a video about that was done by another Peace Corps volunteer who was working for LT, and he was kind enough to just take an interest in the project and come make a video out of our mangrove reforestation day. And I will share that with you now. Both Kira and Christina, who you're about to hear from, are, oh, hold on. I think I messed up the sharing. One moment. Sorry, let me figure this out. So both Kira and Christina helped out with this event. I had the support of a ton of very helpful volunteers, and it ended up just being a really chaotic but very fun experience. Can everyone see?
Yes.
Great. Here we go. Can you hear it?
Yes.
El proyecto Manglar en Escuela Santa Ana inicia en el año 2016, ¿verdad? Junto con el Cuerpo de Paz de los Estados Unidos, ¿verdad? 3 miembros hemos realizado un tipo de reforestación anual y creemos que ha sido un éxito, ¿verdad? Ya que hemos reforestado cerca de 13.000 plantones de los diferentes tipos de mangle, ¿verdad?
Produce aproximadamente 5 veces más oxígeno que los árboles normales. Entonces, también son refugios de la biodiversidad. Es muy importante siempre cuidar, proteger los manglares, no talarlos. Antiguamente, los moradores de Santa Ana destruían los manglares para coger madera y hacer carbón. Y destruyeron una gran cantidad de manglares, también para hacer camaroneras, salinas, entre otras cosas. Pero ya en la actualidad, como se ha prohibido y se ha mermado en gran medida la tala de manglares, se ha proliferado mucho más la población de estos árboles, y con la concientización de numerosas entidades como Cuerpo de Paz, el Medio Ambiente, entre otras, la gente tiene una visión mucho más acertada respecto a lo que es el manglar, y los moradores de la Santa Ana lo que hacen ya en la actualidad se centra más en protegerlo que en destruirlo, principalmente visionado por el Cuerpo de Paz.
It was so fun and it was a lot of work, but it was too good, and the feeling that you're planting all these seeds and you're feeling like, yeah, we're making the great work.
All right, switching back to the presentation. So yes, that presentation was done by Eli, and it really captured. We did one more event after that. It wasn't quite as big. That event was the entire elementary school, groups of volunteers, lots of Peace Corps volunteers, and we planted, I think we planted about 6,000 that day, which was crazy. Oh. And and it's because it's a red mangrove seed, so when they fall off the tree, they're already like a planton. They're already about this big, so you can really collect them and plant them really fast in the mud. And I'm really happy to report that the plants are doing incredibly well. Every time I go to check on them, they're doing better and better. They're getting really great water infiltration, and there was a lot of plans to expand this project to use GIS mapping and open canals, and none of those plans are dead, but they might be happening in a different capacity than originally intended because of, COVID complications. So these are just a couple kind of day-to-day life pictures I wanted to share. The top left is me with my host sister during Patronales festivities. The top right is actually my birthday. So my birthday was only a week after I arrived in site, and my host family found out, and they were like, oh my gosh, and they're like, what do you do in the US for birthdays? And I was like, I don't know, like people, eat pizza and have cake or whatever. And so they went to Domino's and got a bunch of pizzas, took them back to the town, and then we all ate Domino's pizza. And the middle picture is me with some of my English students. I had like some small classes, but I would more do one-on-one tutoring. Like I did a little English in the school, some small groups. But I really liked to do like office hours. Like I would have, you can come by on a Saturday morning at my house and I'll be there to help with whatever English homework you would have. So those are a couple of my students. And then the lower left-hand corner are my 6th graders. We have a kind of an informal baking club. They would come to my house and make Rice Krispie treats for my meetings, and different cookies, but mostly Rice Krispie treats. And it's very funny. They're all, internet connected on Instagram. So I pretty regularly get Instagram video calls from them where they're just like, hey, what's up? How's the US? And so, okay, I guess I'll share a little bit about my evacuation story now. So I was supposed to be hosting a week of technical training where all of the trainees were going to come to my community, and we were deep in the throes of preparing that. We had ministries organizing activities and gardens, school lessons, and it was a lot of work. And as we were getting closer to the date, things were starting to fall apart. The virus was picking up steam, and it was after Carnavales, and I was having host families say, I'm not willing to host volunteers anymore who have come from the US because I need to protect my family from this virus. So, and we were still, everything was uncertain. So there's no word about it. And then really it was not until like the day before the evacuation that I was formally canceling the tech week and going around to tell the host families. And then we got evacuated. I think it was on either a Saturday or a Sunday. And I run in the early morning. So I woke up, I ran, I got back to my house, and my host brother, who I'm super close to, lives right next door. He came over, and their family dog had died. And he was carrying the dog in his arms, and it was so horrible, and it was so sad. And then I just got this eerie feeling in the pit of my stomach, and I was like, I think I'm going home. Like, I think we're going to get evacuated. And so we're only halfway through. Like, things had been going so well work-wise, and then all of a sudden it really felt like the world was starting to fall apart. And there is these, videos of people burning tires in the streets to keep people from Panama City from entering the countryside. And I just had a feeling in the pit of my stomach that we were going to get evacuated. And I told a couple people, including Christina, I was like, I think it's happening. Like, I was packing. I have boxes with labels on them, and she was like, no way, I don't think it's gonna happen. And I was like, I think things are gonna get really bad. And so basically, by the time we got the message, it was like 9 p.m. and I was completely packed. I just had a feeling, and it was really sad. It was so awful to have to leave my community like that, and leave these relationships that meant so much to me. And kind of the messaging we were getting is, you need to get to Panama City now, yesterday. Like, one of our training specialists was saying that she was going to organize a bus to come get us all at 9 p.m. at 9 p.m. on a Sunday. And it's like, there's no transport right now. No one's going to make it to that. But I lived pretty close to Chitre, and there were some people that were meeting up in Chitre to get to Panama City, because they said the sooner you get to Panama City, the sooner you're going to get on a flight out. And that at the time we were like, worried that airports were going to close and stuff. So I felt like I needed to get out right then. So I essentially got a taxi, and I said goodbye to my host family, and we were all crying, and we thought it was, I thought it was bye for now. I thought it was, we're erring on the side of extra caution. We're going to go for a few weeks, and we're going to come back. It's interrupted service. And then it became clear very quickly that this is not what was happening. And so I told my host family, I'll see you in a couple weeks. Like, I'll be back soon. And we talk every day, but it's not the same as waking up with them right next door to me, sharing mangoes and pancakes when they make them. So, but a little nice COVID evacuation story. One of the expat families in my community was looking to do something charitable in the context of COVID. And I texted my host brother, Moises, and I said, they want to help a family out. Is there anything we can do? And he's like, I know a woman. He's really involved with the church. He said, I know a woman who just lost her job because of COVID, and she can't get to work, and she can't feed her kids. And he and my host mom put together a big list of groceries, and I sent it to the expat couple. Maybe some of you know them if you're local to Panama. And they live right in Rumpio. It's Dawn and I can't remember her name, sorry. I'm like all emotional. And I sent her the list. I'm like, I'm sure they don't expect you to get all of this. They got every item on the list and dropped it off to the house. And they took this picture and sent it to me. And I don't know, it really warmed my heart, especially to know that it was like, I really didn't know what my place was in the community until I left. And I was at a hotel in Panama City, and people were finding out that I had to leave, because and they know it wasn't me choosing. They knew it was Peace Corps because everyone was leaving. And I was getting all these texts with people that were like, oh my gosh, like, I can't believe it. I can't believe it. And it wasn't really until then that I realized how ensconced I was in the community. Like, of course, you have days where you feel like you fit in and days where you feel like you're an alien. And that was really a wake-up call for me. And so this is in the hotel in Panama City. I put this on my status and just the love for my province. That's such a big part of my heart. I'm future plans. I obviously want to go back. I have a whole year that I thought I had to get, work done and be in my community that I don't, essentially. And Peace Corps is talking about reinstatement, and that's wonderful, but they can't make any promises because they can't predict the future, which is no fault of theirs. We don't know. There's no precedent for this. We don't know what's going to happen with this crazy virus. So I've been cooperating with actually a pretty large international organization on potentially, I help them with a grant, and they might hire me on 6-month contract. Well, they plan to hire me on 6-month contract if they get that grant. Whether or not I'm going to be able to take that is unsure right now, because it's going to depend on if they get the grant, if I can travel, that sort of thing. But it felt really good to continue to help, and it also felt really good to bring that kind of local Peace Corps perspective into a really large international organization that was going, what? I didn't know about this, and I didn't know about that. And it's the kind of things that I'm sure you all understand you wouldn't know unless you're there every day teaching in the preschool and helping out with whatever needs to be done. And other than that, I'm applying for jobs. I've had a couple verbal offers, but nothing's for sure right now. And I'm trying to find the balance between being positive and counting my blessings and letting myself feel, all the emotions that come with a really, really jarring and really sad life change. And actually, there was something, as long as I have the floor, that I wanted to say. And I wanted to say thank you to all of you as Return Peace Corps Panama volunteers. I touched on this when I did a little RPCV thing in Chitre, but we definitely felt, I think I can speak for all of us, and we definitely felt that we're standing on the shoulders of giants in being Peace Corps Panama volunteers because of all the work you did and the relationships you built. You can go anywhere in Panama and say Cuerpo de Paz, and people are like, oh, that's so great. I learned English from Cuerpo de Paz, or, there's this incredible legacy in Panama. And I realized in coming back that that's not just in Panama, but, the DOL ruling us as being eligible for, reemployment assistance and all of these benefits that we've been able to get in a really tough situation are because the larger world recognizes the impact of Peace Corps. And so you've not only brought that to your countries of service, but also brought that back to the United States. And so I just want to say thank you to all of you for your attention and for also the work you did in Peace Corps, both abroad and domestically. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Bailey. That was awesome.
Thanks, Bailey.
Christina, do you want to close us out?
Yes. Hi. So I'm not the best at technology, so let's hope this works. Let's see. Do you guys have my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. Or we have your face, not your screen.
Oh, no. Okay. 1 second. Share screen. Desktop 1. A moment. Working on this. Oh no. One moment. I'm sorry about this.
It's okay.
Okay. Okay, I think should be good now. Okay?
Yes.
Great. Awesome. So we're all on the same page. Cool. Hi, so my name's Christina. I was in Panama Oeste. Most of you probably didn't have Panama Oeste at the time because it's the newest province. I think it was just started in 2014, but Andy was actually there as well in Chica. So I was probably only about an hour and a half on a good day from Panama City, but it was also the most rural province out of all of the CEC sector. So my community, we didn't have any cell phone signal whatsoever, so had to climb up, not quite to that hill, but to a hill to get cell phone signal, which was about a 40-minute hike. About half the community had electricity. So it was pretty rural, but very beautiful. Really enjoyed my community. So here's some photos. As you can see, we had some waterfalls, a lot of trees, a river, a lot of hills, and it was widely serviced by swinging bridges. And the road was not quite paved yet, so they've since been working on that. But yeah, just to get a view for how rural it is still over there. So I was also CEC, as everyone else who has spoken before me. So a lot of our main projects people have already touched upon. We worked in the schools. So here are just some photos from a few different activities I did with the schools. A few of these photos are from when we painted environmental signs to put along the river that say things like don't throw garbage in the river, don't contaminate the environment, don't pollute, don't knock down trees, etc. A few of the other photos are from when we conducted community trash cleanups, and then we created eco bricks from the trash that we had collected, and the rest are the environmental signs that I was mentioning. So we also worked a lot on limpiezas and trash management in general because our community did not have any trash pickup whatsoever, which is pretty typical for these parts. It was really exciting to get everyone to come out and do trash cleanups because obviously that's not something people want to do on their Saturday morning, but it was really great to see everyone who wanted to get involved. So what we did was I collaborated with the representante who was taking the trash away, and then we sold the cans for recycling, and then we made crafts and other activities out of the plastic bottles. So to try to promote a little bit of recycling, even though there's no municipal trash pickup. So another primary project for Peace Corps is eco stoves with the within our sector. So here's some photos of us building eco stoves during training. I had a pretty big eco stove project that I had written a grant for, and the grant was unfortunately filled about a week before we were evacuated. So I finally received the money to build 27 eco stoves in Sierra Grande a week before we were evacuated. So obviously that never came into fruition, but that is something that if I am able to go back ever, that is something I really want to do because my community members worked so hard on the, because you have to qualify to participate in the project. So we built a seed germinator, we picked up trash, we participated in talleres and projects, and they attended so many meetings. And then finally, when they were going to get the eco stove, we were evacuated. So I feel like I owe them as much as to come back and actually finish this. But this is what the eco stoves look like had they been finished. So another priority in the CEC sector is reforestation. So we, as many of you before me have talked about, so we did start to build a tree nursery in the bottom corner. This is my favorite photo, this little boy trying to help lift up the palm on top of the seed germinator. Very cute. And then this woman on top, she was super strong, just like taking the pickaxe to cut up the dirt. That was a lot of fun. And then these guys just had such a great time, clearing out the field with their machetes and making the space super nice. And then this photo here with the seeds are some, sorry, my dog is actually just made it back to the United States about a week ago. So I'll show you guys her later, but she's in this photo here, but she's adjusting to the United States and is being very loud right now. But yeah, so here are just some general reforestation photos. There we go. So another one of the main projects that I was working on that wasn't necessarily related to CEC sector was I also worked with a women's artisanal group, and we made a lot of upcycled materials from trash that we would find in the streets during the trash cleanup. So it's hard to tell, but we made a lot of items out of like the pop tabs from beer and soda cans, and we made jewelry from magazines, and we made other jewelry from other recycled materials. And we did a lot of collaboration with Mi Ambiente and with other government groups. Since I was in the Panama Canal watershed, we worked really closely with ACP. So we had a lot of support with them. So it was really great to kind of forge these relationships between the government and the community. So here are just some photos of different events that we went to sell our crafts. My community was very coffee based. So I worked a lot with some of the coffee producers. My host mom actually had the largest coffee farm in the community, and she knew it. She would always brag about it and say, I have the biggest coffee finca. I'm like, I know, you do. She's very proud of it. So this photo in the top left is the view from my host family's porch. This is all the coffee drying out. And then this photo of me with the truck is when I was helping to load up the truck with the coffee bags, which everyone thought was so funny because women don't carry bags of coffee. So they thought it was hilarious. And then here's some photos of me with some people with Mita looking at the coffee trees, and then just some photos of more coffee drying in general. So I was also an Ultimate Frisbee coach. So Ultimate Frisbee has been a tool that Peace Corps has used to kind of promote gender equality in sports, because Frisbee is something that girls and boys are both bad at. So if they both learn how to play Frisbee, then, you know, they're boys can't make fun of girls for being bad because the boys are bad too. So it was actually also my girls were better than my boys at Frisbee. But anyway, I was also on a young women's soccer league. They let me play in one game for 15 minutes, and then they kicked me off the field because I wasn't good, but it's okay. We tried. So yeah, it was a ton of fun. Sports were a really good integration technique for me, even though I'm not very athletic in general. It was a really fun way to get to know the young people in the community. In addition, here's just some random photos. I ended up teaching guitar lessons on my porch, especially to this one 15-year-old kid who ended up being my best friend. We would always play Ed Sheeran and other pop songs in English and Spanish on the porch. Ton of fun. And we did some environmental marches. I taught a summer English course in the Casa Comunal, and I put on a few environmental movies like Finding Nemo. We finally got electricity in the Casa Comunal. Sometimes the lights would go out, but when we did have electricity, I had a projector and was able to show some movies for the kids, and that was really exciting. And that was a good fundraising technique to provide transportation for the women's group to be able to attend different fairs. We would charge like 25 cents admission and 25 cents for popcorn, and then we would generate enough money for the women to go to sell their goods at different markets and etc. Yeah, so I'll talk a little bit about evacuation. I don't have any photos because it was pretty traumatizing, but essentially, as I mentioned, my community didn't have any electricity, not much electricity, and no cell phone signal. So I climbed the hill Sunday morning, and I had a text from Bailey saying that she thought that we were going to evacuate, and I didn't believe it. And then I climbed the hill again at 7:30 just to check, and there was no text. So I said, okay, gonna enjoy my night. Woke up, made pancakes, you know, kind of just had a chill morning. And then a community member came running to my house, and he said that I had to call my bosses. It was urgent. So I climbed up the hill again, and they said that we had been told probably about 15 minutes after I left the hill that we were evacuating. So I kind of had one last night of peace before finding out. So luckily, because I was so close to Panama City, I was able to get out pretty quickly, and I made it out within 2 hours. So I ended up making it to Panama City around the same time that most people who were traveling from further did. But I had to leave my dog behind, but hey, I have her here now. Hi, so we were able to get our animals back. So this is Keela, but we just got her back about a week ago, finally, because we were able to figure out how to charter a plane. So I think about 30 of us Peace Corps volunteers got our dogs back within the past week, which was super exciting. That definitely helped with the, the sadness. But it is really hard being from a community with no cell phone signal, because I've had very little contact with my community members. Every so often people will get signal, but often people don't really have the money to buy like the data for the phones anymore. So nobody has really been on their phones, or even messages haven't been delivered. So it's really hard to kind of update people with what's going on, and nobody really knows what's going on. So that part was really difficult, but despite obviously not knowing when this will happen, I really do want to try to go back eventually and just figure some way out to build eco stoves, or in some way, shape, or form, provide the community with some of the promises that we made and that weren't able to be fulfilled. But so that was kind of the jarring evacuation. Nobody expected it, obviously. I had a really large event planned with like 50 plus people the Thursday right before we were evacuated, and that was the day that the Panamanian government decided that they weren't going to allow anyone to host events. So that event was canceled that day, and that was kind of when we had a little bit of an inkling that things were looking a little bit downhill. But it all happened really fast, probably within the week. But yeah, that's basically my story. And even though it didn't end the way any of us wanted it to, I'm really grateful for the experience and love my community, and really grateful for the connections I've made through Peace Corps, and obviously through my community members and all of the friends and family that we've made along the way, including these people, some of my favorite faces from the community. They super fun. The young people were definitely most, willing to show me around. I was the third volunteer, so they had all gotten really close with the volunteers before me. So when I came, they immediately were like, oh, look, a new friend. She'll just play Frisbee with us and go to the river and climb onto sketchy wood structures. So it was really fun to get to know all these young kids, and I hope to see them again one day. But yeah, that's all I have for you guys, but obviously I think we're all open for questions if there's time.
Thank you so much, Christina. Something that I think I kind of glossed over, and I know that some of you guys were wondering about the evacuation. So they told us on, I believe it was the 16th at like 8 p.m. that we had to get to Panama City as soon as possible. And they put us up in a hotel right outside of Ciudad de Saber. And Peace Corps staff was starting to book volunteers' flights using one credit card. And there were about 200 volunteers or so. And I guess eventually that credit card started getting declined. So it was a big mess. There were a lot of volunteers in one hotel, and there was also a law at that time that more than 50 people couldn't be in a space or something like that to do with COVID. So apparently guests were calling the cops on us because we had too many people concentrated in one space. Everyone was extremely sad, extremely emotional. It was a mess. And then they ended up having to charter us a flight, or charter the volunteers a flight, because as I said, I kind of pieced out. I left with my cat. And they couldn't get a flight. They had to charter one flight. That didn't work out. They basically, I don't know, maybe you guys can chime in how many different flights it was once you guys finally got out, but I know that they kept telling you like, all right, we're going to leave. And then it was like, nope, just kidding. We're not going to leave yet. I don't know. Can anyone chime in on that experience? Because I wasn't there for it.
I can speak a little bit about that. I was on the charter flight. So what happened was all the flights were getting declined. People were going to the airport to find out they didn't have a seat on a flight because the credit card was being denied. And then, so they got a flight that was supposed to come from Ecuador, and like the plane was in Ecuador. And so they're like, we're getting on this flight, be ready at X time. They had buses coming. And then they, it was like, hold off. The plane couldn't get out of Ecuador because of some kind of new COVID restriction. Apparently, like the ambassador of Panama or something got on the phone with the ambassador of Ecuador. Like it got up to really high levels. And at the end, they just ran out of time. They couldn't get the plane in. And so they got a plane to come from Miami. So the plane came from Miami, came to Panama, picked us up, and took us all to Miami. And at that time, I think there was over 150 of us. I think there was like 170 of us on this plane or something. And the plane took everyone to Miami. Most people went to a hotel. I'm from Florida, so I got picked up from there. But yeah, they had us all on a charter flight to Miami in the end.
Thank you for chiming in. Yeah, so David or Steve, should we open it up for questions? How do we want to do the next part?
Why don't we, if you don't mind, let's hear briefly from Mary Reisenbach. Is Mary still there? And Jerry Lutz, are you still with us?
This is Jerry. I'm still here.
Okay, Mary? Can't tell if Mary's still here. Jerry, there was an evacuation earlier, as some of you may not know, but there was an evacuation back in 71, was it?
That's right.
And why don't you tell us a little about your experience at that time?
I tell you, I am so used to talking to the volunteers, today's volunteers, about how hard we had it, and that we had my buddy at the time got into Chica on horseback because there was no road passable. But I have to say that our evacuation situation was very cushy compared to what today's volunteers have recently experienced. First of all, we had notice. I can't remember whether it was 30 days or 60 days, but the government of Panama threw us out, but they said, there was a time so we could depart in an orderly fashion, we could say goodbye to people, and mentally come to terms with it, as opposed to feeling that things were completely out of our hands. And the other big thing was that all of us had the option of transferring to another country to finish out our service. Now, those who had been in Panama for that only had less than a year left, and I only had half a year left, had to agree to stay in the next country at least a year to make it worth Peace Corps' expense of getting us started again. But many of us did that, and so a lot of people who were evacuated served in two countries, as opposed to just getting plopped back home with unexpectedly. Another thing that I think eased the pain was we knew who to get mad at. We had somebody to blame. We all hated the government of Panama anyway, because we were children of the 60s and it was a military dictatorship. So we didn't like the government before they threw us out. And after they threw us out, we just said, well, those generals are just ingrates. If they, they're going to miss us when we're gone. It was, I think, better than being conflicted about whether the U.S. government was moved too quickly or did something silly by pulling everybody out of every country, or whether that was exactly the right thing to do, and it was the virus that was to blame. That was, I think, a difference. Another thing was that it was clear that the program was going to be gone for years. We were thrown out by the government of Panama so that there really would need to be a change of government to one that would invite us back before any Peace Corps people came back to Panama. As it happened, it took 10 years. 10 years? 20 years. From 71 to 92, if I'm not mistaken. So besides getting the volunteers out of the country, Peace Corps had the problem of shutting down the office, getting the equipment out, the Peace Corps vehicles, and they enlisted some of the volunteers to drive Jeeps into Costa Rica. So that, I think, is a much more pleasant situation to be in than the one that the panelists spoke about tonight. And that's really all I've got to say about it.
Thank you. Is Mary there? Mary Ann? No?
Kendall Mao is available, I think.
Kendall, you got anything to add? Are they on mute?
Mary Ann is there, but she's muted.
Who was that?
Mary Ann is there, but she's muted.
Now, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I just saw that. I saw the unmute. Jerry, I think you did a very fine job. I don't have much to add, except communication is one of the things that's much different. I mean, I didn't talk to another English-speaking person for, there was one 45 minutes away, and we didn't have much communication. The other thing I wanted to say, and is Kendall there, but the other thing I wanted to say is that I am so unbelievably impressed with these young people and how they comported themselves and what they have done for Panama. I just, I just think it's wonderful. And I appreciate it so much.